Recent polling results show that people are worried about the future of democracy. They're just not worried enough to actually do anything to protect it, which is fun. So, will voters vote for candidates who have rejected the 2020 election, which no serious thinking person actually believes was based on fraud? Well, in general, 18% of voters are very open to voting for candidates that believe the big lie. 21% more are somewhat open. Look, even 12% of Democrats are seemingly okay with it. That's a bizarre number. And the independents are high too at 37%. There's basically no Republicans, 1 in 5, that aren't going to vote for someone who openly believes that the 2020 election was stolen, that believes that the pretext for January 6th was perfectly legitimate, that has 2,000 mules in their Netflix queue, whatever. That is what we're facing. By the way, 71% of Republicans overall perfectly fine with it. Still 12% of Democrats. It's so crazy. And like, to draw it to some of the other stuff that I'm talking about here, 26% of voters say that they've heard of 2,000 Mules, the most clownishly, buffoonishly debunkable election fraud conspiracy movie ever made. Of Republicans who have heard about it, only 2% found it to be unbelievable. Virtually every single one of them believes what they hear there. 71% at the same time say that democracy is at risk. But maybe that's like a good thing. It's like an arsonist saying that the structural integrity of the building is at risk while gleefully laughing and pouring oil on it, I suppose. I don't know. At the same time, 55% of Republican voters say that mail-in voting is a major threat to democracy. So we are living in truly insane times, Michael.
Well, we are, but these are people who get their news from people like Newsmax and One America News, who say that mail-in voting is dangerous to democracy. And so what do? They turn around and they spew it out again. And I learned that, when I go to these rallies and I stand outside and talk to these people, that's what you're hearing. They believe what they're talking about when you challenge it on them. Similarly to when we just heard Steve Scalise challenged by Shannon Bream, if you ask them what's under the hood, they have no idea. They don't know what to talk about. Then they start fumbling for answers and replies. But the bottom line is, I don't believe that 26% of American voters have heard of 10,000 mules. I just simply don't believe it. And that would have to be proven to me in other polling. But even still, there are people that only want to believe it going in, so they're going to believe it, and that's that's the bottom line. So the numbers underneath, the undercard stuff doesn't move me very much. It's just the fact that it's there and people don't care about it that's the most upsetting.
Yeah. Look, there's a lot. If people want to head over to the New York Times and take a look at this, there's a lot of stuff about people's support for QAnon and just a lot of nonsense. There is, like how many elections have I covered? I started doing this in 2012, so not that many of them. And I assume the American people have never been great at critical thinking and really open-minded and really do their own research or anything like that. But it feels like things have got to be worse, more irrational, more unreasonable. Michael, is this just how it's always been, or is it getting worse?
It's hard. It's first of all, I want to talk about you starting in 2012. What was your first appearance as a journalist? What show were you on?
Well, to the extent that I can be classified as one at all, outside of TYT University, I appeared on your show 2012.
Yeah, with the convenient TYT in the middle. It was the best logo ever. All right, let's go back to what you're talking about though. Has it always been like this? It's never worse than it was, and is what I always say. Like when you're living through a time, you think it's as bad as it possibly could be, worse than it ever was. And then the next time comes along and another generation of people who follow this stuff say this is the worst it's ever been. So I think politics has always been divisive. It's always been ugly. It's always been dirty, and it's always been bad. I think now, though, that you're dealing with a reality of people who don't take reality in very well is what makes this a real challenge and a very difficult time to be in politics, to be covering politics, to be polling politics. So I think it's pretty bad because people are tribal once again. And I'm not saying it's never happened that way again, but you cannot penetrate. You're never going to have a president over 50% popularity, I don't think, in our lifetime because of that. It doesn't mean that there's some that will be more popular than others. It's just we are so divided in that way. That's what makes a lot of this policy so impenetrable.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.